I've been hiding out the way on my own. And if I owe you something new, tell me now ago. Well, look at that liquor spilling. I don't know about good decisions. I've been on the run from my own intentions. I'm lacking direction and looking for luxury at any expense, and I get on the defensive whenever you mention my flaws. Maybe you want me to grow, maybe you're for a good cause. Maybe you'd leave me alone if you didn't care in your heart. Maybe you're just so alone that you couldn't care if I hurt. As long as you're feeling full, I just don't know. I need a moment alone to grow. I've been hiding out the way on my own. And if I owe you something new, tell me now ago. Well, I think more than I do more than I say more than I mean to. When I pray, I don't stay the same, and I don't really entertain anyone anymore. Maybe I'm the one you're gunning for. I thought you were a friend of me, but maybe I'm the enemy, cause now it seems like everybody's keeping score, and I don't give a fuck about it, homie, if you doubt it. I've been on a mission from the clouds since I found you, top of the mountains. I'm looking down, and I may want the crowd, but I'm here for the ground. I've been hiding out the way on my own. And if I owe you something new, tell me now ago. That song was called The Debt. Thank you guys for listening. Close your eyes, take my hand, deliver souls again. Close your eyes, take my hand. Of the faithless, and here we stand trapped in the land of the anxious, wondering if we'll ever make it, but nothing holds up when the fears got you stuck. We're out of luck, living for the moment, stay paying rent late, praying for an omen to open the door to better circumstance. So we sing the same song and do the same dance, never made a better choice but made bigger demands. Stay spilling our hands for two in the bush. I thought we had a plan, I thought we would take an action, but here we are again, stuck in the past, stagnant. Close your eyes, take my hand, deliver souls again. Close your eyes, take my hand. I know you're trying to be free, yeah. I know you're trying to believe. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, prayers and salutations. I'm glad you made it out, you should be proud and thankful. It's wasteful to say you're ashamed of everything you've done and all that you have gained. Look at where you've come and look who you became. Once upon a time this was nothing but a dream. At least there was love, but nothing shall remain. So make a good run for a year while you can, until it's gone. Until it's gone. Until it's gone. Yeah. But close Close your eyes, take my hand, deliver souls again. Close your eyes, take my hand. This next track is called Night Walk. Take a night walk, forget the time, it's going by, and take the night off. I think it's fine, I know you try, but I don't wanna play no more. I can see you're getting bored with this whole life, but you only see one side of the picture. I would stay with you, but you're closed-minded with your closed eyes. I need a fuller life, I need a brighter light. I want to feel alive, but I feel strange among all these pretty faces, dollar bills and advertisements, corporations, reputation gets exaggerated out of fear. Generation, get me out of here. I don't even fucking know my peers. The generous begging for better years. Destination could be anywhere, but I want to free my mind, though I feel strange among all these shitty paychecks, sour faces, cigarette smoke, medication, poor education, school still segregated, prison populations bigger than the slave ships, lonely people working shitty day shifts, night shifts, whole world's in a situation, can't figure out how to face it, get high as fuck and sleep it off, rinse repeat till the weekend's gone, maybe that'll wash our weakness off, maybe that'll wash the weakness off, angry people feeding evil thoughts, angry people in our evil thoughts, is that all we are? Let's take a night walk, forget the time, it's going by, and take the night off. I think it's fine, I know you tried, yeah. This next track is called Rainstorms. Well, I know you love me, despite what I say, and I know you trust me, though I wander away. Rainstorms and dynasties, both pass by me. Beauty in the moonlight and beauty in a house fire. How can this be? Can't make sense of the made up. Can't sit still, no wanderlust. Crave alone time, wanna be famous, but I'm free free as I claim to be, free as I say I see, free as the days I slept through, and free as the labor seems, free as a painless trip, free as the truth I left you with. Freedom is everything, freedom is what I need. Yeah. Well, I know you love me, despite what I say, and I know you trust me, though I wander away. My eyes chase the last light of the sunset downpours, but I ain't drowned yet, I ain't found yet. Just a short moment and a long breath, and that's okay. I pause to let the light in, crack an egg open, make an omelet, crack a soul open, get a good life. The fire of pain makes you burn bright, but no love gained for selfish sacrifices, and that's life. And right and wrong, that's a tough call. Everybody's writing their own thoughts. We're all so scared to play the game wrong, so scared to play our days wrong. We get so scared to play the game wrong, so scared to be lost. Now it gets so dark so quick. A day used to feel like a lifetime. Now it's so harsh, so swift. And hate used to feel like a lifeline, till it dragged me down and pulled me under. I was so mad, I was so sure, till the truth came and rang out like thunder. What spell was I under? I know you love me, despite what I say, and I know you trust me, though I wander away. Yeah. This next song is called Aiden's Song, and this one's dedicated to a friend of mine. Well, I know everybody's gotta die, but I don't wanna see you gone before your time. It gets so hard just to get by. We get so lost on the hard nights and the good life. Seems like a dream that I can't remember. Back in the day I used to feel so clever. Now I just feel like I'm falling apart. And I don't wanna run the race just to say that I made the money. If I could save somebody, if I could change the way that you can see yourself, if I could let you know that you can ask for help. But I'm in hell and I don't know the way out. Trying to save you, but I pull myself down. Trying to spread truth, but I'm all doubt. And I'm all out of cheer and charisma. Whatever I thought I could give. Your life is a gift and it give us. So why do we poison our livers and hate on our brothers and sisters? What's the affliction? What's the condition? Yeah. Why, oh why, oh why, oh why do you wait? Hey, what a way to waste your mind. And why do you wait? And why do you wait? And it was fun to be young, we would fiend together, skip class, find a bag, smoke tree together. Now we're all out of luck and it seems like I never saw you were getting stuck with your demons. And even if I had, I don't know if I could take it back. I'm blessed that I knew you and grateful we had all the times that we did. Now that moment is past and I don't want the past, but it's gone so fast and we were just kids trying to figure out how to live in this chaotic world where we never fit in. At least that's what I thought, but the premise was flawed. We were always the gift, and everything we needed was within. But with the clouded lens, you know you can't see shit, so I do what I can and let this hurt be the cleanse. Why, oh why, oh why, oh why do you wait? Hey, what a way to waste your mind. And why do you wait? And why do you wait? All right, I got one more song for you guys. This one is called Hard Times. Thanks so much for listening. I was your lover in the mornings, the evenings were made for leaving. No sorrow if you don't see me, no problems if you don't need me. Like the seasons change, so do we, and so do the reasons for our ways. So do our needs and so does pain. We outgrew each other, still I talk shit when your name comes up. And I don't mean to be rude, but I think that I'm just still hurt, and so are you. Would've wanted back, I couldn't take it, but it's strange how when I see you now, it's like I never knew your face. Do I disappoint or dissipate? Should I disregard the distance when the smiles fade? Will I miss the mark and drop the cake? I saw you walking on your way. Solemn as the autumn leaves hanging on to yesterdays. And these are just the hard times, yeah. We'll be doing so fine, don't you see? I know you well. And these are just the hard times. We'll be doing so fine, don't you see? I know you well. And summer shines, you know, 'cause spring delays. Me, I'm just moving through my winter phase. I'm overweighing blame to balance out these tragedies I can't explain. I just live today and learn to let it go, and in that way I think I can be saved. No matter what it takes, you know, we'll learn to change. But the outside world matters so little when I know I'm still the inner slave. Yet this external weight so heavy on my brittle frame. These are just the hard times, yeah. We'll be doing so fine, don't you see? I know you well. These are just the hard times, yeah. We'll be doing so fine, don't you see? I know you will. These are just the hard times, yeah. We'll be doing so fine, don't you see? I know you will. Thank you guys for listening.
Man, I will tell you what, that performance was fire, man. That was amazing. Welcome to Grove Sessions, everybody. Friday night. Glad everybody made it through the week. You just witnessed an amazing set by none other than Nadim Azzam joining us here on Grove Sessions. Super pumped to have him remotely from his personal studio at his house. We love doing this, man. This is always such a pleasure. Those of you that didn't get to catch the performance, you definitely got to go back and check it out. We were streaming live. It's captured. You can see it on our videos page on our Facebook. You can also check it out on YouTube and Twitter as well. It'll be held there from Periscope. So definitely go back, listen to it. Amazing performance, man. Thanks for being here.
Dude, thanks so much for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it. I've been seeing you guys doing these all over. They're really great.
Cool, man. Thank you so much. Also here as normal, Max Price, head of social media and a producer and entrepreneur, and he's our main head of social and marketing, and he's always here for these interviews. So good to have you always, Max.
Our boy.
Just want to let everybody know we did throw up a donation link. So if you want to contribute to the music tonight, we sure would appreciate it. That goes to the artists, and it goes to support these live streams that we continue to do. We are planning on doing some in-studio performances coming up at Grove Studios. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be getting outside into the courtyard with some nice lighting and all kinds of fun stuff happening moving forward. So maybe we can talk Nadim to coming back over to Grove sometime and doing another live set.
Outside in the sunshine, I'm with it.
Yeah. Down. Perfect.
Perfect fun music.
So those of you that don't know, Nadim is an Ann Arbor-based singer, rapper, songwriter, producer, best known for touring the United States with Grammy-nominated reggae artist Matisyahu. After the release of his EP, Here's the Changes Volume 1. He's currently working on his first full-length album, due out in mid-2020. He's been featured at the Arc, Ann Arbor Summer Festival, Sonic Lunch, Detroit Music Hall, Hill Auditorium, The Blind Pig, and, just got a lot more cool stuff in store, man. We're looking forward to digging in and getting with it. Oh, I forgot one, the Buttermilk Jamboree. So you played some huge shows. Please, as all artists, many gigs have been canceled. We're trying to get creative with all kinds of ideas to make live shows happen again. We know we're going to be able to do it safely at some point, but I know we're all looking forward to it. But we appreciate it, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's kick in.
Hell yeah.
It's really dope having you on here. And we've known each other for forever, and I've always admired you as one of the top artists in this area, just with your quality.
Uh-oh.
We're good.
Can you hear me? Yes. Someone called me. I was just saying, I've always admired you and your quality and your drive to put out meaningful music, man. And I fucking love it.
Coming from me, man. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, people in the comments during the performance were definitely mentioning the quality. You've got to this place where you're producing this super quality music. I've had the pleasure of seeing you perform live. You're a fantastic live performer. Seen you on some big stages. But I always like to go back a little bit and talk about, how did you first get into music? What's your music backstory? Take us way back if you can, dancing in the living room, records, whatever you fucked with back in the day. We'd love to hear about it, man.
Dude, yeah, I think apparently you can ask my mom for more on it, but when I was I think 1 year old or a couple years old, I found an acoustic guitar and wrote a song I think it was a play on words regarding everybody being everybody. And that was my first song.
Dude, that's so good.
But I mean, I grew up with the Beatles in my house all the time. Both my mom would play, and a lot of like, Lucinda Williams, a lot of different stuff. But I remember the Beatles in particular because my next door neighbor was my best friend, and me and him and his sister, we would like run down the street and sing Beatles songs every day and like race to the bottom of the hill. And like, so I grew up with a lot of music around me. My dad was really into Pink Floyd and a lot of jazz. But I think for me, like I got into so I started out as a musician. I started out as a guitarist before I did any vocals. I was like a long-haired Slash wannabe, a chubby little Slash and I played like a hard rock and metal and shit. And that was like all I did.
Dude, we need to see those pictures. I swear.
Oh my God. I'll say, yeah, there's a video on Facebook. It recently came up in like memories or whatever. I was like, oh my God, who is that kid? But yeah, I started there. And actually, so the way I ended up getting into what I'm doing now is for the first few years, like I said, long-haired rocker kid, just want to be like, I was obsessed with Guns N' Roses, right? I literally wanted to be the next. I was like, if only I had been born when Slash was born so I could be Slash. Like that was like everything I wanted. But then, when I was, I think 15, I got sent away to like a wilderness program for, fucked up kids and then troubled teens. And that was actually where I started singing. It was actually a really weird experience. It was so this whole thing was like, you're in the desert, no roads, no toilets, no showers, no nothing, hiking. It's the area is called the Grand Escalante. It's between, I think it's Bryce Canyon and the Grand Canyon, or between Grand Canyon and Zion Park, something like that. But basically you would hike all day, 10 to 15 miles a day, 3 to 15 miles a day. And then you'd like sit around a campfire and talk about your feelings. And like I said, you didn't know what time it was. There was no technology. You didn't see a road or a car for 2 months or shower or anything. And at one point in that, they had a solo, which was like a 3-day thing where you go away from the other like 10 kids and you can't by yourself quarter mile away for 3 days. And I had gotten into meditation while I was there. And I sort of had this idea of like, oh, I have to like overcome distraction. So I'm going to so what a lot of kids would do is they'd save up all their food for the week for when I'm getting into too much detail on this.
No way, man. This is fascinating shit. This is good. Yeah. Roll with it.
Yeah. But, basically, so, you'd get a food drop every Monday, and it was like, random items that you'd make food out of, like, some bland pasta, a little package of tuna fish, some cornmeal and flour and whatever. So what most kids would do to like kill the time during the solo, which I think is actually an interesting parallel to how a lot of people probably kill time during quarantine. But they would use eating as a distraction. So everybody would be, they'd save up all their food for the week. So the whole 3-day solo, they could just feast and like get through it quickly or whatever. So I decided I was going to fast while I was on the 3-day solo. I was like, I'm trying to like really be alone with myself and like deal with some shit, I guess. And the therapist from the place, who was like, his name was John. He's a great guy. He is a great guy. And he was like, okay, well, if you're going to fast, why don't you like kick it up a notch and also like not read? Like, don't write or read, like don't journal, don't read any of the books you have on you. Like literally just be with yourself. Can you be alone with your thoughts for 3 days? And so I did nothing but like sit around tending this my own little campfire and tanning in the sun and meditating and like laying in one spot for 3 days. And it was the craziest experience. And I think at one point I was like getting like mad at myself. I was like, you're too distracted still. Like you keep finding something to focus on. Like you can't actually have an empty mind. So I like made myself sit there and just like stare at a blade of grass, literally for like, I had no idea how much time it was. It could have been 20 minutes. It could have been 5 hours, but it felt like hours. And I remember I got like so depressed. I was just like, okay, I'm like in stillness. Like, is this the point? Like, this is awful. I hate how this feels. Like, if this is the point, what's the point? And then like, they had a doctor dude who would come every like once a week and check on you. And so he happened to come out right at that moment. And it was like the first interaction I had with a person in 3 days. So I was like, hey, what's up? And he was just a really nice guy. So we talked for a few minutes. And then as he walked away, I just like somehow got the urge to start singing. And I just like wrote a song like off the top of my head, just like a little simple thing. But it was the first time I'd ever like sang. And I was like, oh, this is what I got to do. Like, I have to sing. I have to sing. I have to sing. And I'd like written raps and stuff before. But again, I was like, oh, I'm a long haired, rocker kid. I can't rap. So I sort of put those raps to the side. But in this wilderness program, I couldn't have any instruments or anything. So I just wrote a lot of lyrics. And then I got out and I went back to some of these instrumental guitar thingies I'd written. And it's actually a pivotal moment. And what happened was that I went to a boarding school after the wilderness program, and you couldn't have an electric guitar, at least not for your first like 6 months or some shit. So I could only have an acoustic. So my mom got me an acoustic to have while I was at this boarding school. And that is the only reason that I primarily up until recently have played acoustic guitar. Because before that I was only electric. But it stuck for like years on the first couple projects. I think almost every picture of me is playing anywhere is with an acoustic. But so then I had all these little instrumental things I'd written and all these raps and some singing. And so I started just putting them together, and I was like, well, what if I sang here and then I rapped on this part? And, I was like at this boarding school, very surrounded by negative, unhappy, frustrated teenage boys, like terrible environment, but, good for learning to rely on yourself a little bit. And so I wrote a bunch of songs there and got comfortable, like writing and singing. I had a couple of people there who really encouraged me, that were like the first people to be like, man, like you could do something with that. And then it just sort of grew. I moved back to Michigan after that was all out in Utah and then Arizona. And then from there it just developed. I started playing with a band. I was in the Euphorics when I first moved back to Michigan. And then I was doing a bunch of solo stuff, and then I started playing. I met Jacob LaChance and Sam. Well, I knew Sam Collins from the Euphorics, but bassist Sam Collins, and also Chris Robbins first, and then a few other drummers, David Ward. But basically,
I know David Ward. That dude's
dude's
killer.
God. Oh my God. Oh, it's disgusting. I love playing with those dudes because it's just I fuck up. I can't play well when I'm playing with Jacob, Sam, David, and also Ben Green, who's also with David in a few of his projects. I fuck up my parts because I'm like, ooh, that was dope. Oh man, I missed it. Like I'm watching
Right.
But yeah, and then I sort of had a moment where I was like, I got to switch over to this more electronic. I love the live band stuff. I love to incorporate it, but I also felt like I want to make music that sounds like what I listen to, or at least has more of those elements, But yeah, that's a long-winded answer.
No, man, long-winded answers are totally fine. That's fascinating, and I know Max is itching because you mentioned meditation. That's something that comes up a lot in our conversations too. But I just love that you had this really intense, like isolating experience that brought you to kind of like your next level, and I can totally relate to that. I lived by myself in this tiny efficiency for a year. I didn't have a TV or anything, and all I had was an acoustic guitar and no money to do anything. And it's like that was an intense year, right? Like what else do I do? Play guitar. But you had, it's almost like you had this like kind of almost like a spiritual experience, right? Like where you're just looking dead inward and came to these new realizations. I think that's amazing.
Dude, it's really, it was just very interesting. You can call it a spiritual experience. I think, whatever it is, it was life-changing for sure. And sort of, it's like, it's rare. I heard this idea that, humans, like our psyche and our psychology and our ways of being are sort of like metal, in a sense that, they're very hard and formed, and once we have these habits, it's how they are. And there are very few moments when there's enough heat and pressure to where metal has to get so hot in order for it to be remolded into something else. And humans are sort of the same way. And sort of these moments in our lives when like everything gets shaken up at once, when you can really change habits. Like again, drawing the parallel to what everyone in the world's dealing with now. This is the only other time other than when I was in that wilderness program that I had the thought like, and again, there are a lot of people suffering. There are a lot of people who are less fortunate in very difficult circumstances. I'm not speaking on anything other than my own experience, but being in a position where I'm okay, I have a safe home, my family's safe, and I'm just basically working from home and creating. It's like I had the realization for a lot of people who are fortunate in that way. This is the simplest life will ever be. The least responsibilities. You think about what you have to eat. Most people, everybody's sleep schedule is fucked. Like you really are just existing, as a human being. And this is the only other time I had that feeling was when I was in that wilderness thing. So it's, I think ultimately everything that happens is just something that happens. It depends on what we choose to make of it. But it's been a good opportunity personally,
Yeah. I mean, I love that point that you make of like just existing, because that's like something that I've tapped into through meditation, and just through sitting there and trying to like quiet my thoughts and everything, and just like existing, and it's crazy the breakthroughs and the changes that can happen when you can like just kind of tap into the moment like that and just be okay with just being. Like if you're okay with just sitting there and not thinking, like you can pretty much do anything, because that's just like one of the you're not doing anything, you're just sitting there being, and you're not bored somehow, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I,
Well,
I love.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are having this experience of for the first time, and I think it's going to be hard to go back to a more normal society where it's like, suddenly we know what it's like to not have our every waking moment focused on work or recovering from work for a lot of people. And I feel like I read something that in a lot of ways this is going to like move the future forward faster. Like a lot of people will now be able to work from home. Online will be a lot more of a thing. It's eliminating unfortunately, eliminating a lot of businesses that were on their way out. It's just speeding up the decline and increasing, the use of the internet and all that. So it's really like, I don't know. It's just crazy. It's very.
I agree.
Something that you need to recognize that's happening, and then if you're like a business owner or an artist or anything, you need to make adjustments and just realize that things are going to be different, and it's hard because so many businesses and so many people, it's really hard to make those kinds of adjustments into like the new kind of internet age, but I also love how you mentioned the Beatles, as one of your biggest influences, because I have always like loved the Beatles and love just their message that they bring across of love and peace and stuff like that. And I've always wanted to, bring that message to hip hop music, in some form or way. And I feel like you definitely have accomplished that goal, and I think that's super dope. I mean, even with the quality, like your background harmonies, like with yourself and everything, and just like it are incredible, man.
Dude,
But but one thing I want to know is how did like living in Ann Arbor and Michigan influence who you are as a person? I know it influenced me a lot. So
yeah, I mean, well, here, really quick, I want to touch on one thing about the Beatles. I feel like I can't ever mention the Beatles without acknowledging the deep history that the Beatles came from of Black American artists. It's all borrowed music and we're guests in it. But yeah, I mean, the Beatles have been a huge influence in shaping me. But anyway, coming back to what you're asking. I think Ann Arbor is like it's a bubble in some ways, but it is a liberal, educated, progressive city. I think I've benefited from not just the experience of growing up in Ann Arbor, but of growing up in multiple places. I was born in Vermont, lived there till I was like 3, came to Michigan, lived there through elementary, middle, and elementary school, went back to Vermont for middle school, and then Arizona and all that. So I benefited from, I think, sort of being in different places. I think seeing a lot of different kinds of people, and just there's a general air of open-mindedness here that, like, it has its own flaws. It comes with a set of sort of maybe a little bit of elitism and entitlement, but overall, I'd prefer to be surrounded by people that at least have this similar consciousness or are looking for at least aiming in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful city. It's I feel like at different moments I've wanted to escape it, and at other times I love it. I sort of really had the experience when I went on that tour with Matisyahu. Up until that point, I'd always been like, I got to get out of Michigan. I got to run away, go to California. I got to go here. I got to go there. And then once I went on tour and then came back, I was like, oh, I actually love living in Ann Arbor. I just want to be able to leave. I just want to like go on tours and go out and come back,
I'm with you on that, man. For sure. I feel the same way. I'm living in Ypsi and I came to this area just because, Ypsi and Ann Arbor, like so close together. I could be in Ann Arbor, I could be in Ypsi, and I think you're spot on about that. And I love that idea and I love that you came back here. You know what I mean? Cause I think, Southeast Michigan in general, like needs this strong artist base. The scene needs, what I see as power players like you staying and creating, because you probably know a ton of people like I do who have moved to LA from Ann Arbor and that are there now, and bless them, man, that's amazing because they're having success out there. But I do like that idea that you kind of came back and said, I can be here, but I can leave, I can tour, that kind of thing later.
Well, and that's, I think with that too, I understand for sure why people leave. I think that even though everything is much more global and interconnected now, it's still, LA, New York, Austin, Nashville, some of these cities are like the music hubs where, you get the opportunities. Yeah, you get the opportunities just from being in the right place. If you're not a 20-minute drive away from the studio, you might not get to meet that person, have that opportunity, go to that place, whatever. So there are advantages and disadvantages. I guess I just sort of felt like, I want to build from here. I'm not saying I'll necessarily never leave, but this is my home. This is my home base forever.
I think that's smart because it is also a lot about connections, and you got to think there's 2 million artists in LA trying to make it, and just being you're super tapped into the music scene around here, and it's and you have much more power when you can bubble yourself out of a different part of the country and just gain your own following, and then make your moves or whatever.
Right. I think also supporting other artists here. I mean, we can really, I love seeing things one example I always go back to is Odd Future, even though it's a very specific thing and a very specific sound, but just the idea of a bunch of independent artists working together and supporting each other and helping each other shine and bringing light to the whole scene. I think that that's one thing that, you rise together as a group of artists out of a scene, you have a much better chance of getting a national splash if everyone's putting the same effort in,
Yeah, totally agree with that, man.
Happening around here, just because over the years a lot of people have just connected and met each other and became supporters of each other and stuff. So it definitely feels like it's starting to bubble up around here. But I think this is a perfect time. You mentioned your tour with Matisyahu. I would love for you to talk about that. How that came about, what that was like, because that is an incredible accomplishment. To do that. He's sick. He's amazing. It's honestly a perfect artist to match your music with. And so marketing that's on point, and it's just he's a huge artist, man. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was a couple of years ago now, but it was a blessing. I can't take much credit for it happening. A friend of mine sort of said, hey, there might be an opportunity where they're looking for a Jewish or an Arab artist to be a part of this thing. And it was very vague. I wasn't told anything other than that. And I was like, yeah, sure, pass my email along. And that was it. There was no other conversation. And then a month and a half later, I just got an email from, Modest's booking agent at the time, agent, I think. And they said, we like your music and we'd love for you to join the tour. And it was a really incredible experience. I mean, I didn't believe it at first. I was in complete disbelief. I got super excited, right? The day I read the email, I was like, oh my God, I was at work. I was working at I think Revive and Replenish, the little cafe at the base of Zargon Tower. And I was just like, oh, fuck yeah. I'm out this bitch. Give me a minute. I'm going for a smoke and I got to celebrate. I'll be back in a sec. And I went, and that lasted for a little bit, but then from then until the actual eve of the first show, and I played the first show, which was about, I want to say a month or two, I was mad depressed and very in disbelief of is someone screwing with me? What if it, is it going to get canceled last minute? I'm just kidding. We found someone much better than you that would do this way better than you could. It really bothered me. And then I got on the tour and it was oh my God, this is everything. I mean, it was getting to meet real professionals and people who do this for a living and have the experience. And they're all so welcoming and kind and open and really supportive of me. I made some really great friends, people I love very dearly. And it was just a really incredible experience. I was very lucky as a first tour experience. You know what I mean? I mean, most people's first tour, you got to drive a van and follow them around and just show up at the show and don't fucking talk to anybody. This was I think it was because it was a sponsored tour. I got to live on the bus and travel with Modest and his crew. And I mean, it taught me a lot and it really inspired me to work hard. But then, and it was like the highest. It was like the highest high. You know what I mean? It was like my ideal day. I did whatever I wanted. I was being paid well. I woke up and got off the bus in whatever new city we were in, found the closest coffee shop, wandered around for a couple hours, did a sound check, played a 20-minute set, and then just hung out. And it was like, you know, like really beautiful. It was really cool. It was really a blessing. Like I'm very grateful to Modest for giving me the opportunity. And like I said, I learned a lot. But when I got back home, I got incredibly depressed again. Because I was like, man, how do I go from literally my goals to working my way back up to, like, you know, I mean, it's really a strange experience to go from playing sold out, you know, like 800 cap, 500 cap rooms. I don't know the biggest sizes or whatever, but and walking out to all that and then coming back to like, okay, little local bar gig.
Dude, for real, man. It is, right? That's such a good point. I think a lot of people wouldn't see that. They'd just be like, oh, you did this huge thing. Awesome. But yeah, I could see how that would feel that way, man. How did you deal with that?
Well, I felt like, all right, so one thing I knew immediately was, okay, well, the truth is I have to earn it. Because I think when I was younger, I had this naive, lazy, privileged perspective of like, oh, like I'm just talented. So like, you know, all I have to do is stay open to the opportunity and it'll just pop up for me and I'll get there. All I just got to do is show up and talk about my shit and try and get people on my side. And, you know, I think there is a certain amount of truth to that, not in the sense of like, oh, just wait around, but a lot of the opportunities did come without me sort of pushing for them. And I'm very lucky for that. But it also bred a sort of weak mentality of waiting around. And I sort of had like, I remember now I laugh at this like younger version of myself in my head who was like,
we all do, brother.
Dude, well, because I had the specific thought of like, I felt guilty, like, oh, all these other people have to work so hard to get where they want to go. And it's just going to happen easy for me. And life was like, ha, 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 you a dumb little kid. Let me teach you. And so it really but I think that was one of the most valuable things for me because I realized, you know, it's the 10,000 hours rule. It's like, you got to put the work in. You could be, and I had a spiritual mentor, a coach, a very good friend who, one thing he told me, he was like, look, man, if you put in no effort with where you're at and who you are, like you're good. You know what I mean? Like you'll be good in the local world. You'll do well in your scene. But you won't grow past that. You'll stay stuck in that way. And that really stuck with me. And I realized, you know, okay, I've got to kick it into gear. And it's like, you know, hard work beats talent every time, and talent gets lazy, hard work doesn't, you know, and that's been a huge challenge for me. But basically, yeah, it sort of just, it was painful in some ways, but also very motivating. And I think the other side of it too, is that it sort of set me on this different path because I realized I felt depressed when I left, amazing before I left. I felt amazing the whole time I was there. And I felt depressed when I got back. And I was like, man, like if I'm going to rely on these, like nothing actually changed in my life, right? Nothing about me, who I was, nothing really changed. It was just an experience for a couple months, you know? And I was like, if I'm going to let these external circumstances determine how I feel, and like these things that are out of my control and are going to go up and down, I'm going to be fucked no matter what. I'm going to be unhappy no matter what happens. And so it sort of began like a years long path that hasn't ended of like, I just realized I had to slow down and know myself first and like get right with me and learn to control myself and be more disciplined and be more of a fucking adult before anything else. Otherwise I would get there and fall apart, or I'd get there and I wouldn't be happy. And so it's been a longer path, but yeah, again, I think it was one of the most important like turning point moments I would say was coming back from that and being like, who am I now?
Yeah. Those are tough things
about, just the ups and downs. And, you know, how you're not really different. You're still like yourself. And I think that realization that like, you know, and it kind of ties back into like the meditation and being just okay with just existing, you know, because if you can be okay with just existing and kind of get your mind to quiet down a little bit, then those like ups and downs don't affect you like as much, you know, because you're just existing, you're witnessing them, you're a part of them, and
allows you like you can like focus on the things like, you know, the I don't know, for lack of a better term, like the work, because you got to do the work anyway, and you got to be right with yourself, because you're not going to get the work done unless you're right with yourself, right? It's like all of those realizations that come together. That's hard stuff, man. you know?
I think it's true too that we don't choose like how it happens. We don't choose what's gonna be big. We don't choose what's gonna take us to that next level. And I think that's true with so many people. Like we think that we're just gonna like show up and it's just gonna happen. But your point of like if it did happen and we were like huge right now, like maybe it would crumble and we wouldn't have as much longevity, you know what I mean, as if put a little bit more time in.
I mean there are a lot of people who have there are a lot of examples of people who got famous or successful very publicly very early, and I think it's very young, and I think it's a traumatizing thing for almost all of them. Like I don't think, I mean it might be cool, like to be the kid in high school or whatever who's like fucking famous, but a lot of them are dead. A lot of them have serious problems, and it's like I'm so grateful I never got everything I wanted when I was 15 because I wasn't psychologically, emotionally prepared for anything. And going back to meditation, I would say it's not like it's not that I wouldn't say like I one thing I had to learn was to not meditate to try to feel better, but to meditate just to enjoy meditating, just to the act of doing it. And like, like you said, it just like, it makes the highs and the lows lessen. It's a smoother wave and a slower one.
Like the crazy thing is I've been like, devastated or super sad, but then I've been able to tap into just like that experience of meditation and feel joy and happiness and peace just chilling. Like even though just 2 minutes, like my circumstances haven't even changed. 2 minutes ago I was incredibly sad, but now I feel great. Like that's so weird, and I think also your point about like getting famous and like having these crazy highs while on tour, like those come with the crazy lows, and that's why a lot of artists like turn to drugs and stuff like that because they don't understand how to deal with those crazy highs and crazy lows. So like the drugs make them feel a little better when they're at their lows, but that's not the healthy way to actually deal with it,
No, yeah, it's in a very abnormal reality to live in too, I think. I mean, I was even just with Modest, I was able to just witness it, right? Just being around that and seeing what it's like where, you have to realize you're the golden goose. So you lay the golden eggs. So everyone around you is both dependent on you and also sort of there's like a pressure on you. And I can't, that's difficult to imagine what it's like living with that where
yeah.
I just like, I remember I witnessed this a little bit, but I remember reading there was an interview with Kendrick Lamar and Erykah Badu interviewed each other, and they were talking about the importance of having asshole checkers. Someone to check you.
Dude, that sounds so bad. Like I don't want anybody checking that, but yeah, no, well, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, like it was like the whole idea that when you get to that level, everyone around you is a yes man. Because if they're that close to you, they're depending on you for a paycheck. So they don't want to piss you off. They want to stay on your good side. And that's why you see a lot of people who get really famous, like their reality is distorted because they're not getting accurate feedback from the people around them. And so it's important to have people you trust and love. They can check you and be like, hey, you're being an asshole.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense, man. I've never been on a big tour. I've always been, local Michigan. But I can imagine, that being the case. And I do ask, I love that term. I'm totally stealing it. Asshole checker. I have those in my life. I think, I think I rely on Max for that sometimes. I'm always asking him questions like, how did you think was that cool?
Yeah. I mean, it's so important to have those people. I mean, I feel very grateful to have a lot of them. A lot of loved ones, family and friends, just to support. And I trust people to stay honest with me. I mean, it's not even about being famous. It's just like you need that in life, period. At least because to me, the goal is growth. The goal is improvement. And if you're not getting, I love the people who will from a place of love, tell me the shit that no one else wants to because they like me and they don't want to hurt my feelings. But maybe I need to hear that, oh, you're a dick when you do this, or you don't handle this well, or you need to get better at that, or you're weak in this area. Like, we need to know. Otherwise, you're live a fake life, you know?
I totally welcome criticism, man. You know, like that's part of that growth all the way around, you know, when it comes like from a personal standpoint or even, you know, in music, you know what I mean? Like I like other ears on the music that I'm creating. I appreciate being able to work with an engineer who's willing to go, yeah, that track kind of sucked, man. Or, you know, I think you can do better. Do it again. And you know, I've worked with
Community.
people in the past where they didn't want to hear that feedback, and I never understood that. Like it's like
Right.
that's how literally how you get better, and it's the only way you grow. And
Right.
eventually, you're going to be a 65-year-old man. You know what I mean? And you can still grow at 65. So it's all
Yeah.
good. I appreciate the way you approach, and I feel like I've gotten to see because I was aware of your music. You know, I've seen some of your earlier stuff. I didn't see you live back when you know you were doing more of the acoustic stuff, but I've seen that, you know, from watching your older stuff because your quality is, from what I've seen, always been great. And to what you're doing now, and clearly there's like some shift in a little bit of style, like you're doing a little more electric stuff, a little more electronic, like more that kind of production.
Yeah.
And I'm really digging the direction, man. I think when I saw you perform last summer, you did it solo, but I was like, everybody that was there was like, who's this guy? And he's really good, by the way. I mean, that was the general sentiment in the audience because it was a show. I don't know how much you had time to promote it or whatever. That's kind of a weird show, but it was a cool show too that a lot of people kind of turned out. But
Dude, I mean, I love those student events, and shout out to them for putting it on to
for sure.
and EMU. But yeah, I mean, it was actually, that was very interesting for me because I was like, I sort of told myself, I felt like I was on a path where if I kept going with like the folky funk hip hop rock band sound, that I would sort of get stuck to it, sort of tied to it in a way where it's like, I love that music, it's fun, but it was never what I sort of set out to make. I want to make, like I said at the beginning, music that sounds like what I listen to, or at least is in the same world. I remember I played a show with a friend of mine, and they said to me, like, we were talking after the show, and like somewhere in the conversation it came up that like, oh, who are like some of your influences? And I was like, oh, like Kendrick is probably like my favorite, probably, period. And he was just like, what, really? I would never take you for a fan of that. And I was like, okay, something is fucking wrong. If you just played a show with me and heard my whole set and you don't hear what I love and listen to, then I'm not really, you know, necessarily being true to myself. And again, nothing against that music. It's incredible music with incredible people, and it's a lot of fun. It's a certain energy. But yeah, I sort of felt like I had to step back and recenter and like sort of make a decision. I felt like a lot of what had happened is I sort of wasn't really making decisions. I was just going along with whatever happened. And that's a very fun ride for a while, in the sense of like, oh, I have these songs that I wrote. And then I met Jacob LaChance. We started playing, who plays sax, and we started jamming together. And then I was like, wow, this sounds great. You should start playing in my shows. And then we're, you know, my girlfriend's brother, Chris Robbins, was introduced to us, and he was a drummer, so he joined and started playing with us, and I was like, wow, well, now all we need is a bass, and we're a band. And then we had my intention was always to fuse the live band with the electronic stuff. It was always like, I want to bring those two worlds together. So like someone like FKJ does it really well. But basically I was like, here's this handful of like acoustic songs I've written in the last few years. Let's use these to get good at playing together. Right. It was like, let's just use this to become a unit and to learn how to play. But then it just became its own thing. We're like, well, now these are good songs. We should record them and put them out. And then, you know, a year and a half later, I'm like, wait a minute, I never did that electronic hip hop project. I never finished that. But then I had all these songs. So I sort of told myself I was going to pull back from performing and from doing much public stuff until I finished this project and could say, here, this is what I really am about. This is what I love. This is what I want to be known for putting out into the world, I guess, both lyrically and sound wise. And that show was one of the first ones I did. I think that was probably the first show actually that you were at, so those were like I mean, even today, like I think one of those songs is like a final version. The rest of those are like unmixed and unmastered demos of the instrumentals, you know, that still have other instrumentation added. And shout out, by the way, to on the first song I did, that had electric guitars by Alex Fuchs. Sam Collins played the bass. Ben Green played the trumpet. Dennis Shirt, Squareface produced it with me, co-produced it, and then DJ L mixed and mastered it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is still in the works. So
I love it, man. Like you know, the coolest thing, I'm a big song guy. Like I've played in bands all my life, but I love how great songwriters, and I regard you as a great songwriter. I love how great musicians, you know, tap into that, and you know what I mean? Like they're into your project, man, because they recognize that the songs are there, and I'm sure they're friends, of course, too, right? Like you want to play music with your friends because the hang has to be good too, right? Like you're working with musicians that are assholes or, you know, high on themselves, like that's no fun either. But I love that, man. I really admire and respect artists that, you know, they have those great songs and are able to pull in like the musicians to back it. I'm really pumped to hear the stuff that's coming next, man.
Dude, thank you so much, man. I mean, it's been really it's been a long time coming working on this music, and it's really like I really appreciate hearing it because it's also in ways a little nerve-wracking because I sort of established myself in this more acoustic band sound recently, and then also it's very vulnerable content, you know what I mean? A lot of it's about friends passing, addiction, just heavy life shit that, like, you know, it's not party music. It's not like, hey, let's go fucking ride the boat and listen to that. It's like, no, I like music that you can the music I love is what you can grow from and listen to and learn from. Like I love learning from other people's experience, and song is a way to do that, you know, nothing else can.
Look, man, everybody needs that record that they're listening to, like when they're just driving solo in their car or they're going for a walk, and that's like what they hear. Like that needs to be in the world too. And I'm really glad that you know that you're going in that direction. Those are the songs that people connect with. I certainly connected just hearing some of these songs again. And you did have some pretty heavy stuff in there, man. There was some political stuff in there that felt actually really salient to like what's going on in the world right now.
Dude.
I don't know if you played that particular song. I think you know what song I'm talking about. It was like the first or second song I think maybe it was the second song that you played.
I think it was the second one, yeah.
Yeah, what is that song? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, that's called Close Your Eyes. I mean, it's really interesting. I've always joked that, like, I feel like with the songs I write, and I think this is true of all or most songwriters, you're like a vague prophet. You like vaguely predict your future. I mean, I can get conspiracy theory deep on that, looking at like famous artists' songs and how they sort of predicted their downfalls or their rises. But basically,
so many times, you know, like it's just it gets stuck in your head, dude.
Right. I mean, well, so a lot of these songs, I wrote all these songs 2018 and 2019, I believe. I think the most of the ones I played, all of those are 2018, 2019. And it's interesting, because it's like I've always had the experience where the songs I write, I think I know I don't really know what it's about when I write it. It's just like these words just feel right. That's a point. That's a thing. And I'm like, that can be applied to a context. That's cool. I like that. It means something to me. But it's not till like a year or two or three or whatever later when I really when it lines up with the world and I'm like, oh shit, that's what that was about. I didn't even know. Like one of the songs I did with the band, I wrote before a friend of mine passed, and it was clearly about him and his life. You know what I mean? Like to me, at least. But again, I'm sure it'll have a different meaning to me at different points in my life. So that's what's crazy about music, anyway, as we can always have these new associations. But yeah.
Yeah, it's always crazy going back and like listening to old music and your old like lyrics and how they still fit in like with your life and like I went back and listened to my project that I released like 5 years ago. I was like, damn, I was fucking smart back then.
Like I knew something. No, I mean, that's the thing that felt, I mean, it's really interesting, like while just how much more applicable honestly the music feels now than it did when I wrote it. I mean, I think a lot of the things that we're seeing, I mean, there's a pandemic, but other than the pandemic, all the other shit we're dealing with in this country, the brutality, it's always been there. It's always there 24/7. It doesn't turn off. But it's a moment when, for I think a lot of different reasons, the whole world is sort of looking at the same things. And I mean, the music is to capture those feelings, I guess. It wasn't like written like based on that. Like I said, it's from the past, but
Yeah, it just struck me, and I'm looking forward to going back and listening to the set again. I usually do after a great performance, and we've had lots of them. But
Yeah,
it felt
yeah.
like a really good set for today and right now. And the music, you said it's not party music. It's not like get up and it's got this chill to it. But you're talking about deep stuff, man, and like that's Max and I, like every time we talk to somebody in one of these interviews, we always say, man, it's hard as an artist to like reach in there, at least for some of us, right? I'm not a songwriter. I'm a guitar player, and I've accepted that about myself. But like I admire songwriters for their ability to like tap into that part of their psyche that allows them to put words on the page that actually connect with other people, right? That makes, even if, I mean, how many times have you listened to a song and you felt it was like about one thing, and then later you hear the artist talk about it, or you read something and you're like, oh, that's what it's about? Shit, I thought it was about this the whole time. But it doesn't matter because that's the connection. And great songwriters do that, man. So I honestly hear that in your music. But like, how do you, it's like you said, I don't know necessarily what I'm writing about, but you are tapping into something, but you're not sure how where does that come from?
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just to address an earlier point you said, I think it is a very poignant and interesting and sort of crazy time. And like you said, today, I mean, right outside my house, there's a protest against the Ypsilanti sheriffs for police brutality against an unarmed woman. And I mean, it's like, I had the thought of like, man, like, I feel weird doing like hey, look at me, I'm doing a live stream thing, like while that's happening. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I walked upstairs, looked out the window, saw it, and was like, oh, time to go press play. Time to go sign on to Zoom. And it's interesting, but I think that for me personally is something that I do feel much better about because of the music I'm doing now. If I was doing some, hey, let's go have fun, jam and dance, like, no offense, that shit is great. We need it in the world. We need to feel good. I'm not gonna take that away from anyone. But I just want to be the one that's there when you're sad, when you go for a drive and you want to listen to something that you want to get in that mood. Like, that's all I ask. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the writing process, I mean, they come around in different ways. I just remember like the one called like Rainstorms, for example. Like I know you love me. So that whole thing.
Voice on that one. I wanted to like hit me. I was like, damn, dude, you're getting
dude, I gotta practice the raps a little more. But basically
Kendrick flow on there, man. Like you were saying, like you want some more. Like I noticed you had some dope flows.
Dude, thank you, man. But yeah, like that one, I remember me and my girl were watching the Nina Simone documentary. I think a year or two ago, and we watched it and it ended. It was just so like, it just left me like a feeling, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like a particular thought, just like, oh, that's just heavy. And sometimes when I get a feeling like that, it's just like, that's like a trigger to go write. It's like, okay, it's time to go write. And my girlfriend Natalie and I were hanging out, and we had like made plans to hang out for the evening, and like, like that, because we weren't seeing each other as much at the time, and so it was like, tonight we're hanging out. But I just had this feeling of like, I finished the movie and I was like, I just got to go outside for a minute, and like I have an idea, I got to like write something. And she's like, okay, but she was like, okay, go do it, you know what I mean? And so I did, and like that's what I was thinking about, was like, man, like you love me enough to be okay with me doing what I need to do and not hold it against me and not be upset, you know what I mean? So like that's where that whole idea came from, where I went outside and it's this beautiful, beautiful day with like, it was cloudy and it was just around sunset. And so the first lyrics, that I know you love me despite what I say, and I know you trust me though I wander away. It's like, that's that whole thing of like, man, like I appreciate the love. I appreciate that you're in my corner, even if I am an asshole sometimes, even if I don't always show up right, even if I'm a dick. And then the song called Rainstorms, because of that first line. I went outside and I remember looking up and it was like these big storm clouds with this beautiful sunset just like going by. And it was like, there was something that day. I mean, I think it was also the Nina Simone stuff that was in my head, but something that day with the Trump administration. Me and my dad have joked, we call it the Trump dynasty, because we know what they're going for. And so that first line of the verse was because I was looking up at this beautiful sky and just playing the chords back and forth. And I was like, rainstorms and dynasties both pass by me. And it's like, we'll get through it. They come, they go, but it's just, and then the rest of the words just sort of fell out. It's not like an intentional thing. I think that as songwriters, we're just trying to capture an idea. And you'll often hear people, whether it's for an invention or other things, be like, "Oh, I had that idea, but they did it, but you didn't fucking do it." And that's the thing. Like it's about being prepared. Like I've had ideas where I'm like, "Man, I was gonna write that song. I was gonna do that," and then someone else did. I remember actually. I come from a totally different life experience. It's totally different music. But I remember like the first time I heard Kendrick Lamar, right? When he put out Good Kid, Mad City, that was the first I'd heard of him. And I remember listening because I was this young, ambitious kid. Like I'm gonna be the serious artist who talks about deep shit. Like that's what I want to do. I want to make that cool. You know what I mean? And then I heard Kendrick, and I was like, "Fuck, he did it. I give up. Like what am I gonna do? Like he topped it. Like there's not, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but it basically.
No, I love hearing your writing process, and honestly, like, there's you mentioned something earlier about how like you felt kind of like, I don't know if silly wasn't the word, but you thought, oh, there's people protesting right now, and there's people, there's some mad shit going on in Minneapolis, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's scary times. That stuff is not new. That happened in Ferguson, that happened in 1968. Like that stuff needs to stop. But I think about all of that. There have been artists that have been, writing about many different things, incorporating words and imagery from, whether it's the political struggles that people are having, or love, or all of those things. And I believe that art is important in that way, because I've been a person in this world going through some really awful shit, and there have been songs and records that have literally like saved my life, like have brought me like a voice into my world and into my life that have impacted that. And so I think you shouldn't feel, by all means, there are going to be more protests, and there should be.
Yeah.
Get out to the next one, right? If you feel strongly and you feel like you can support the movement, I'm going to be there too. But people do still have to like do their jobs and carry on to some degree. And I think being an artist now is also important too. And people need that joy in their life, because I think a lot of people are feeling, you see it in the live, in your feed, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, like people are pissed right now, and they should be.
Yeah.
But we need that common humanity too. Not that that's not common humanity. What I'm saying is people need to feel connected, and I think art still does that even in these trying times. So
right.
It's good to hear your writing process and how you soak up the world and bring it back,
Oh yeah, I think both the on that point, both the art and what the artists do is so important. I think like in the sense that the art itself, like what was this? I think it was an As a Man Thinketh, that little audiobook thing by James Allen. It was like some I'm paraphrasing it badly, but something along the lines of like, art is what makes life worth living. The laboring humanity would perish if we didn't have something to go for. And yeah, so I don't feel bad in that sense. I just think it's important to, like you said, get out and also just acknowledge the reality that's happening. But I also, I only just wish I was in a position to do more. I love seeing artists like, not artists, but people in positions to help using their platforms, and not just using their platforms, but using their pocketbooks, like Seth Rogen, Steve Carell bailing out protesters that are getting locked up in Minneapolis. Like,
yeah, I love that, man.
I wish I could do more,
Yeah, no,
but,
we all do.
We're working for,
But I really think, like, at the core, music is one of the greatest ways to spread awareness, touch people's lives, help people, make people happy, make people feel like there's someone that they can relate to. Like, so focusing on your music, even though, like, because you do have a great influence, even though, like, your platform isn't as big as them, you do still have a platform, and you do still have an influence, and that's one of the reasons why I've always like been drawn to you as one of my favorite artists from this area ever since I met you is because you actually care and put meaning and real shit into your music and into your lyrics, because that's something that has always been so important to me, you know.
Thank
And
you.
and I think even yes, so just working on that, doing things like this where you're spreading positive energy and messages, you know, we can still have a small impact on the world, you know, even though and that goes for everyone with social media. Like, yeah, we just want to post about what we're doing or whatever, but if you have any sort of platform or any, you know, sort of anything, you do really have a chance to, like, you know, influence other people kind of and put your, you know, your positive energy out there, you know?
Yeah, awareness is a very important first step.
I love this, man. This is super fun. I love rapping with you. Like, and so well, you have you have some stuff coming up. You're working on some stuff. Do we have a details, release date for the music, the music that we heard today?
Nothing yet, man. I'm balls deep in the recording process, just getting a lot of these done. I want to do it. I think another thing that I've never properly done is a real release campaign. I've never really known how, in the sense, and now I'm much more prepared from working more in the industry and getting to see how the other side of the music business operates. Has let me in a window where it's like, okay, I know a little more what to do, how to approach it, and I'm much more organized and grown than I was before. So I think emotionally it would feel good to just like rush and throw something out because it would make me feel better and more accomplished and, you know, validation. But I think it's more important to do it strategically and do it right. So I'm really just, I mean, this, and I did an Earth Day live set at the beginning, but those are the only ones I've done. And I've sort of been particular about not wanting to do much. I just love you guys. I really want to support, and I love doing it.
Oh, thanks, man.
This is like you know, I love the way you guys have been running it, and it feels really good to support and be involved. But yeah, I mean, the music's coming. I've had different delays. I think part of it too is, like I said, a lot of it is beats I've made on the computer, and then I work with Dennis Shirt to do the production, and he co-produces it with me, and that we can do remotely. But a lot of it requires live musicians and recording bass and recording trumpet, recording saxophone, electric guitars. So I'm again inclined to focus on doing it right rather than doing it quickly and being safe and smart. We all got family to protect. So yeah, but it's on the way, man. I mean, I've got a lot done. I mean, I can tell you it's like, I think 16, 17 songs. I mean, I don't know how exactly what format they'll be released in, but here's the other thing that's interesting. So this half I would say that there's two halves. There's the half of the project that is guitar based, meaning, you know, like, meaning I wrote a guitar part and then we built a beat around it. And that would be all the songs I played today. And then there's the other half, which are just beats that might have some live instrumentation. They might have bass, they might have electric guitar, they might have horns and strings. But strings, damn, I didn't shout out Davis West, who played violin on that song I gave all the credits for earlier. Davis West. Nice. But anyway, back to that. Yeah, so a lot of where was I? I lost my thought.
Yeah, we're talking about you got like 16 songs, right?
Oh yes. So the second half is just more beats, more in the hip hop electronic category, and none of that has been heard yet anywhere. I haven't played it. I haven't showed it to anyone. So this is like a big step towards hip hop and modern production compared to everything else I've done. The other half of the project is like another step further. So this is sort of the milder, more acoustic side.
Nice.
That's cool,
Dude,
man.
I like it. I like it. And I honestly love also your strategy of like doing the band thing and just playing with those guys and getting used to that environment. I think it really helped you as far as like live booking and just getting into all those shows and stuff like that. And because sometimes it's hard when you have the more traditional hip hop sound to get booked for like some of those festivals and big shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. Hopefully that'll keep changing as the rest of the world wakes up to the fact that hip hop is like the defining genre.
I was going to say it's still baffling to me, like that's I mean, even at Grove, like hip hop artists are one of our biggest clients that come in and work out of the studio, and like the DJ studio and the production room are honestly some of our most like highly used rooms. And it's people doing that kind of music. Like it's, it's like literally the most popular music in the world.
Yeah.
So why the booking is not happening is based in some other troubling realities, I think, that we need to address in the music scene too. But
Absolutely.
but I love that, like the hip hop scene, in Ann Arbor, like from way back, like when I first moved here, like back, when I was like 21 years old, like Funktelligence and Athletic Mike League and all those guys, where I came here and I was like, dude, this is sweet. This is amazing. I came from a little town and then I came from Denver before that, but I was like, this is an amazing scene. And and now, like, even like in Ypsi, Ann Arbor, like there's a great friggin' hip hop scene, man.
Dude,
I mean, we just had Approachable Minorities on, and those guys those guys are sick.
God, amazing.
True Classic,
True Classic, another amazing. Oh,
yeah.
Max,
our boy
Max
right
Price, come on,
dude. No, I mean sorry, man.
Oh, I was just saying it's sick. It's incredible, and I think we've just been grinding over the past like 10 years, and we're gonna keep grinding. And the cool thing about all of those artists that were just mentioned that I love about like the Washtenaw County music scene is we all have like this conscious tip, like we all want to raise people's awareness, and I think that's pretty unique in the music industry, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you do that, Nadim. Like you fit in that pantheon of those artists mentioned, man. I think I really just dig it,
dude. Thank you. I mean, again, another shout out to the Approachable Minorities crew, because they do the 734 Saturdays at Ziggy's and a bunch of other dope things that I think have really brought the scene together. And also Kyle Hunter is thrown. That was our first show as a band, was with Jacob and Chris, was at Dreamland Theater with Kyle Hunter. These shows that are really cross-pollinating genres. You know what I mean? I mean, it's so cool to see like an acoustic singer-songwriter and a rock band and a hip-hop act play together. Now, I know for a lot of people, it's like, okay, not like a well set up show or whatever, like it's like in the sense of like maybe it should all flow as one genre, but I think that there's like an underlying connection of culture and community that like outweighs that. And so for me, I mean, that's been a huge influence. I've met some of my favorite artists through that, so big shout out to Ziggy's and 734.
And
100%.
Now Wednesdays, even back in the day, we were both on a show, the same show, Wild Out Wednesdays at Club Above.
Yeah, and Club Above, True Classic doing his night there too. Like, I mean, there's just so much, and Harlan the Dojo. It's just like there's people that care, I mean, it's a great community. I will say on like the live band thing, I think the other thing that really benefited me from that was, like I said, the hard work. You look at the Beatles, going back to like Hamburg and shit, when they went to Germany, they were playing 8-hour sets 7 days a week for months. I mean, they were on a lot of speed and shit, but they were doing it. And
just don't do the speed, kids.
No. But
you can work hard without it.
But like, I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. But it's all about the 10,000 hours rule and how people sort of studying these outliers, these incredibly successful people, and determining both how lucky and fortunate they were and what they actually did right. But one of the things is that the Beatles had that opportunity to put so many hours in. So for me, it was my own much less intense and not drug fueled version of Hamburg with Jacob and Chris and Sam primarily, where we played, I mean, a bunch of shows and a lot like all over the state, and a lot of them were 3-hour bar restaurant gigs where we played original music for 3 hours, 3 sets back to back. And there are a lot of people that do much more than that, but it really helped me to grow as a musician, and the bond I created with those guys, like all the people I play with, like I love them so much. And now it's just super exciting to say, okay, here I got this like more hip hop foundation. What are you gonna do on it, Jacob? You know, sax solo here. You know, what kind of bass line will fit with this? It's like it's just so much more fun to bring it all together. You know,
dude, I love it. Honestly, like I love making like more like traditional like hip hop beats and then bringing in like a guitarist or some live instrumentation
right
on top. It's super dope.
That was the first paid gig I ever got as a musician. I had an internship at EXO Studios in Detroit. Shout out to Gino EXO. And he would help me get gigs where his artist that would come in and record at his studio would like, you can throw an extra $100 to get a live guitar on your track. And I just would like write guitar over for those beats, and people liked it. So I think that also is actually a huge thing that I haven't thought about, really influenced what I'm doing now. Because as part of it is playing the electric guitar with those beats. I got all that practice at EXO Studios in Detroit, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of even like I've been hearing a lot of like popular hip hop that's coming out is using guitar based beats, right. You know. So it's pretty hot.
That was I don't know. Oh man, I don't know who it was. What producer was it? It was one of the OG hip hop producers. It was in a documentary I saw recently, but they were talking about how the industry has shifted. When you look at hip hop, the roots of it, these were poor kids who couldn't afford instruments. So the only thing they could make do with was a record player. So they had to use other people's pre-recorded music, and they learned how to loop it and sample it, you know, going back to Kool Herc and growing from there. But what's interesting is that hip hop now the technology is way more affordable. The playing field is even. So I for example, all the beats I make, I've messed with sampling a little bit. I need to learn more. I need to study. But really a lot of what I do is make beats. I have a keyboard, so I'll come up with chords. I have like the Ableton Push and a Machine Micro. So I'll just play the drums on there and then arrange it. So, I wish I knew who it was. Might have even been Rick Rubin or something, but basically they were saying like, man, like we have no idea where hip hop's going to go. Cause when we were doing it, when we first started this shit, we were limited. We could barely do that. Now you can do whatever you want. Cause the beautiful thing about hip hop is that it's like fucking Kirby and Super Smash Bros. It takes on the power of whatever it eats, you know? Yeah. I mean, if you put a straight up jazz track, you know what I mean? Like Faux Free by Kendrick on To Pimp a Butterfly. That's just like that's just a jazz track instrumental, and he's rapping over it. So it becomes a rap song. You know what I mean? It's the same thing whether you're playing with a band or you're sampling. I mean, Lil Nas X, like country, a Rumor who did the Rascal Flatts thing, like all this stuff. I mean, there's a whole world. It's the most malleable genre. It's the ultimate genre because, like I said, it incorporates everything. There's that song called like 90 MH by whatever, I don't know his name, but it's like a classical violin loop with hard ass trap beats, like drums on it. And it's like the most banging shit I've ever heard in my life. And I love that if it wasn't a classical violin, it wouldn't be cool, you know? So it's like, I think every other genre that talks shit is just jealous because you can't, you can try to incorporate jazz into rock. You can try to incorporate whatever into whatever, but it's not the same. You can't literally draw from it and create something new out of it in the same way that with hip hop, that's the whole thing. It's spoken word over whatever you want.
Right? Well, even if you go back to jazz, right, which is, you know, it's a music that was created in the United States, right? Like it's rooted in you know, African rhythms and you know, some combination of like European you know, instrumentation, some African instrumentation. I mean, the banjo is not really technically an American instrument. I mean, the banjo came from the roots of Africa. So like, it's like that's a constant theme in American music, right? And it does kind of, so, you know, that's the richness of American music. I always wanted to be like this musicologist that could speak more intelligently about it, but like, I can see the thread, right? Rock and roll, jazz, hip hop, all invented by Black culture,
right?
That, you know, came from, you know, different parts of the world. And that is the thread. And it's amazing. Like it's like, to me, and even like incorporating a classical violin with this hardcore like beat. It's amazing. It's hard to top that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you said something incredibly important too, that like, I mean, all the music that I love, the music that saved my life, that gives me a way to express myself. And honestly, all of the culture, the highest valued culture in the world is Black American culture. Like it's just,
and yet at the same time, we're dealing with what we're dealing with now, where this larger political thing is happening. It's really sad because it is. I agree with you.
I mean, I think that also comes back to the fact that, racism has never had a problem exploiting Black creations.
100%.
So
very true.
Like that's why people are like, well, I like this musician or this football player, but like you get mad if they kneel. Like, no, you don't like them. You like being entertained, and so I think
that's the bullshit part.
Right, but yeah, going back to the music, I mean, yeah, it's we're so lucky, honestly, and I'm grateful that I mean, just to think what it takes to turn such tragedy and suffering and brutalization and like a history that frankly most white people I know probably couldn't handle, would lose their minds and get violent and angry, to turn that into the most and okay, quick note, I'm not against getting violent and angry, but or in that context anyway, but I would say like the ability to take that experience and from that produce earth-shattering culture and music and like literally like I don't know, this shit saved my life. You know what I mean? I'm so grateful. I don't know what I would do or who I would be if I like, I can write singer-songwriter songs. I can't put as many words in there. I can't say a thought. That's one thing I've always thought about with hip hop, especially versus other genres. I feel like singing is more like about just strictly singing, right? There's blends of them, but singing is more strictly about the emotion. Like the words are important, but it's really the melodies that move you. And like rapping to me feels more like I can take in someone. It's like I'm like reading their writing. I'm taking in their thoughts,
Absolutely.
not just like capturing a line of feeling. I mean, that's amazing.
It's poetry to a beat,
right?
And poetry at one time in history was like, that's what people, if you go back enough in time, like people would, after dinner, they would sit down and they would, read poetry. Like,
right.
Not many people really do that anymore, right? Like poetry is still a valid art form, right? It's just, it has a place and it's, people are fans, but I've always thought of hip hop as it is poetry, to music and the sophistication of like rhymes and techniques and stuff that people use and patterns and all of that, like it's incredible to me. Being someone that can't do it, I hold it on a very high pedestal, of course.
The funny thing is hip hop now, talk about it being all encompassing, it also encompasses singing as well. So it's
right.
Like there's the spoken word part
totally.
of it. There's most rappers are singing nowadays, most popular ones,
That's been the most interesting. I mean, yeah, Kid Cudi, no, it didn't start with Kid Cudi, but Kid Cudi started the wave of our generation.
Harmony, Bone Thugs and Harmony, I think, were probably.
Oh yeah, I mean, it goes back before that too. What's the free? I gotta be righteous. I gotta be free.
If you go back to like the late 70s.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like it was already happening kind of to some degree, right?
Right. But in modern pop music, I would say you can trace the roots back, but all as far as you want. But in like mainstream hip hop pop, I feel like it was Kid Cudi and then Chance ran with it and then Travis Scott took that even further. And then, but for me personally, it's been one of the most interesting experiences learning how to use my voice in that way. Cause I think one difference in what I'm doing now versus a lot of my older songs, like especially on that Here's the Changes, I was much more rapping like this, like abrasive 2000s Eminem, no melody, I'm here for energy,
Which has its own place. That's cool too.
I love that. But there's something that I think, especially when you're trying to deliver maybe deeper shit that's not like so accessible off top, the delivery becomes very, very, very important in people being able to access it and feel the emotion. So there's more like, I know everybody, da da da. Da, 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 da. It's just like it's calmer, but like it's such a difficult practice, because I've said this before, but like people don't understand how difficult good rapping is. Like it's
so
not
difficult.
It doesn't take any less effort than singing because if you incorporate melody properly, even if it's just that, and then I was here, and then I went, hey, like just those little things and getting that right every time, that's so many hours of practice. That's like a muscle.
100%. You know? It's not just talking over a rhythm.
Right.
You know?
That's not pleasurable to listen to.
Yeah, it's not at all. Because I've heard that version of it, and I usually just turn it right off. But I did have this, like, as you were talking about that, I kind of like had this moment of like, even when I was listening to your set, do you ever get the G Love and Special Sauce comparison?
Matt Altruda gave me that. Yeah.
I was just wondering, because there was a couple moments, you know, I mean, there's some obvious comparisons, you know, with honestly, the instruments.
I haven't listened to him enough to have an opinion. Like I should.
I think it's just you know, it's just an interesting thing and mostly the connection is his stuff tends to be like, right now with what you're working on, tends to be a little bit more like laid back in the pocket. I don't in any way think that you're not derivative, because you're not even listening to him. So, but like he plays guitar. There's a thing there, but like, I think
my mom's a huge fan. Like in the last few years.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time. So
yeah,
I just thought it was kind of cool. It kind of brought me back. I'm big into like all kinds of music. So
hell yeah.
It's good stuff,
man. Thank you so much, man, for doing this and for putting the performance together. Like it was dope. I love the new music. It was really fun to chat with you. We definitely gotta kick it soon and create something together, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, man, I love you guys. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. I really enjoyed the conversation, and thanks again for the opportunity, and thanks for having me.
For sure, man. Thanks for putting that set together. You know, like, there's some uncertainty right now. I know you're neck deep in recording. It seems kind of weird to release, not weird, but like it would be a difficult time to be releasing music right now, considering you can't necessarily tour and support it. Although things are changing slowly. I just found out today that Nashville opened up their music venues to 75% capacity.
Oh, that scares me. But good, exciting, but scary.
It is a little scary. I think all of us want to do things safe. And I think like, you know, we have summer coming up, and I think there's some open air outdoor activities and potential, you know, performance opportunities, but hopefully, you know, we can find some opportunities there, but there are a lot of uncertainties right now. What do you think, to just close it out, what do you think is most certain right now, whether personally or with music in general?
Well, I will say what's most certain for my own stuff is that it will be coming out regardless of a pandemic. I'm not waiting for that sort of perfect timing. And in fact, I think when the world's scary and we all have the time to be stuck at home with our thoughts a little more, might be a good time to have more serious music like that. Anyway, so I'm planning to release as singles. It'll be coming out, you know, one by one soon here. But yeah, I mean, that's the only certainty. The only constant in your life is you.
I love that, man. That's so perfect. Dude, let us know when those things drop. Of course, we'll be watching out for it, and we'll definitely put you on blast on our channels to let everybody know when the music gets released. Dude, really looking forward to it, brother.
And in fact, when I have more of that other half of the project, maybe I'll come back and we could do something again.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking is like, or if when you're trying to release it or you're releasing a single or something like that, we could have you back on. That'd be.
Yeah, dude, I'm all about it.
We're going to do it. We have a great courtyard. We've got a great team that are going to be doing the recording and the engineering. Very small, less than 10 people in the courtyard outside. It's going to be fun. Dude, so that's the next production schedule we're going to work into. So, yeah, absolutely. And complimentary masks for everybody who wants one.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again, everybody. If you just joining, Nadim Azzam, amazing Ann Arbor artist, and you should definitely go check back at the beginning of this video to check out his set on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, Periscope, whatever. Coming up on Sunday, we got DJ Fame going to be doing his thing up in here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And look forward to seeing you again, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate you guys. Good to talk.
Peace.
Grove Studios, Grove Sessions out. You guys have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you on Sunday.